One story about the Salvation Army. We took our vacations in Mexico in 1970, the first time we went down there. And Colonel Rasta in Chicago said, "Oh, Carlson, if you're going to Acapulco," he said, "they have a children's home down there." And he said, but he said, "I know the commander in Mexico City. His name is Jacques Eggers." And he said, I visited him when he was in Haiti for many years. So he said, "If you can, fly over to Mexico City and see Jacques Eggers, and he'll show you around Mexico City." So I flew over there in about 1970, 71, and met Jacques Eggers, and they were so kind, him and his wife. They were from Switzerland, officers. And they showed me around, and I went to the advisory board meeting in Mexico City, and of course they had the presidents of many of the automobile companies on the board, and then so I had a good chance to get to know the Army. Anyways, going way back to then 1985. Now he had retired now in 1985, and he went back to Switzerland. And I can't think of the city where the Red Cross is operated. Their headquarters is in Switzerland, in his city. And when Kurt was a hostage, the first thing I thought, and there was no negotiations, there was a stalemate, and they couldn't get the people to talk, man. So they mentioned the Red Cross, that the Red Cross was trying to get in there to talk to the prisoners. So I made a phone call, and I called Jacques Eggers. And I told him the story that my son was a hostage, and he said, "Well, gee, the headquarters is right down the street from where I live." He says, "And I know some of the people. I'm going to go right down there and talk to them." Right. And that story was, by golly, and a couple of days later, the Red Cross broke all the barriers, and they got in and talked to the prisoners. And then the negotiations began to get better and better, and finally they got a settlement, But I really think that this Colonel Eggers had a lot to do with it, because he was such a forceful person, And
it took courage to do it.
Yeah, he had the courage to do it, to go right down there. Then another little story on my mother's side.
Yeah.
My mother, her dad came over separately, and then mother came over separately, and then they met on a farm. And of course he was working in the field, and then my grandma was in the kitchen, and so they fell in love and they got married. Okay. And so then they started having kids. Yeah. And back in those days they just rented farms, so he would find a place and he would rent and put the crops in, and then they'd share with the owners. And through the years they ended up with 3 boys and 6 girls on rented farms. And my mother had tremendous stories about how the girls and how their family was so close. Right. And then there was an interurban from Belvedere that came near the farm. And so the kids were all able to get on the interurban on Saturdays and go to confirmation at Zion Lutheran Church. And my mother was in the class, I think 116 children in the confirmation class.
Is that Zion Lutheran on Pearl and Belvedere?
No, in Rockford.
Oh, in Rockford.
In
okay.
Rockford, yeah.
Okay.
And so the father and mother made sure that the kids went to school.
Yeah.
Now, one other little thing about the young people today. In February, the Salvation Army head officer in the United States made a statement about how the Salvation Army was expanding. Years ago, they got into 50 countries. Now they're into 126 countries. Right. Then he told about how they're different things. But then he said, we have one sad thing to say, that the young people going to church has fallen about 30%. Yes, and we've got to get, this was just in February of this year, he said, we've got to get the young people back into churches and into doing the right thing, And we see it in our country today. It's something that for today we have got to put a stronger emphasis on the young people growing up, get a better education, go to Sunday school, go to church, go to school, go to college, because I think that's the future of America is at a critical point right now.
I think that a lot of people would agree that the values and the faith that was a part of making our nation great is that worldview and those values, those biblically based values that are only going to be nurtured and imparted and developed within a community of Christian faith. Yeah, right. And thus it's so important.
One thing about the boys club, I was going to Lincoln Junior High School, and my dad put a basketball hoop in the back of our house, and I was playing basketball, and I was growing. And then Lincoln had a basketball team. Well, I told my dad, I'm going to try out for the team. Well, I didn't make it. I got cut. So I came home, and my dad, he felt sorry. He said, but he said, listen, go down to the boys' club and take the guys that got cut and have a team and start playing at the. And we did. We went down to the boys' club, and we had a real good team. And then the coach at Lincoln heard about us, and we scrimmaged his second team, and we beat them. So I mean, I have a wonderful relationship. And then later on, I was on the board of the boys' club, and then we began to expand and do things. I mean, and I think of Jim Flodine, what a great leader he was, and then Cliff. Stoner, I mean, he has done a tremendous job. So, I mean, there's no question the boys' club is and now it's boys and girls. So, I mean, it's a plus for the whole neighborhood,
the whole community.
Community. So, I mean, we've people who. Now, I heard just the other day. I went to the Swedish Historical Society. Yeah. And a fellow there, he said, "Did you hear about this fellow? His name was Johnson." And I said, "No." He said he was a carpenter. But a good carpenter, but he was a great investor. He bought stocks or something. He left the Swedish Historical Society over $1 million. Now, someone said it was in the paper. But I mean, this is what should happen right here. People should come to the boys' club and see what's happening. And by golly, leave them a nice check, because they're doing the right thing with the young kids, you know. So that's the point of it all.
East High School is celebrating their 75th anniversary this year.
Oh yeah, I see. Both of us graduated in 1942. 1 year to Central High School. Yes. Yeah, and then we finished up there at the East High School.
East, or your senior year. So the building, so East High School that's there now is where you finished up.
Right. And Violet was she was a cheerleader, and I was a basketball player, and so that's how we met, you know, and a relationship. Yeah.
I've been at East High School several times this past winter spring semester, and it's been wonderful to see all the photos on the walls of just, you know, generations back. Sure. And I love the way they keep that alive. Yeah. I very much appreciate your time and your sharing these wonderful stories. And
I'm glad to do it.
Again, we appreciate it a great deal. God bless you.
Well, thank you very much.
And all your continued endeavors.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Okay.